if your swooting triceratops is a yoga enthusiast, because why wouldn't he be, we have the very popular yoga pose, the downward dog. I would recommend looking for events that start earlier in the day. We will be cutting the safety eyes out at first, and this is how he ended up looking. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Morgan and I'm the maker behind LA Crochet, and if you're a returning crochet friend, then hey, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be telling you guys all about my market last weekend, and you guys, it wasn't super great, but you know I like to keep it real with you, and as a vendor, not every event can be a huge success. But I learned so much from this experience and I wanted to share it with all of you in case it helps you with your future markets. We'll be getting into what sold, how much I made, and what I learned, including what to look for when choosing events. But first, if you'd like to support my channel, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and you can check out my Instagram and my Etsy linked in the description. But already friends, let's get into it. First things first though, I am so excited to finally be releasing my brand new pattern. If you watched last video, then you already know what I'm talking about. My new pattern is the Splooting Triceratops. I am so excited to share with you guys that the pattern for my Splooting Triceratops is officially up on my Etsy. Look, they're like on a serving platter. You guys have already shown me so much love over this pattern, and I'm so excited that you guys can finally make your very own Splooting Triceratops. Triceratops? But of course, I wanted to give you guys a closer look at the pattern. So here they are. I made these two, the blue and the yellow, using Sweet Snuggles Light and a 6.5mm hook. And then the green one is using Parfait Chunky with a 5mm hook. And one of the things that I love about this pattern is that you can actually position them in several different ways. First, of course, we have the sploot. Classic, possibly one of the most adorable positions. This was the main thing I was going for with this pattern. I just love how adorable they look with their legs sprawled out like that. Next we have the sitting position where all of the legs are brought to the front. Again, so cute. Then of course, if your Splooting Triceratops is a yoga enthusiast, because why wouldn't he be, we have the very popular yoga pose, the downward dog. And the other pose we have is the cobra pose. And then once your Splooting Triceratops gets tired from all of their yoga, they can take a nap in the position that I like to call the reverse sploot. This pattern is pretty low, so the only things that you have to sew on this guy are the tail and the frill. So all of the legs are crocheted directly into the body, which I think is a pretty low amount of sewing for the amount of detail that goes into this guy. And as you can see, using Sweet Snuggles Light and a 6.5mm hook, he's about yay big, my head for reference. And I have to say, having these guys on my table at my market was just so adorable. They added such a pop of color. And of course, they looked adorable on display. And I also have to mention, thank you guys so much, everyone who applied to this tester call. There were like 150 people who applied to test this guy. There were so many incredibly talented crocheters, and it was so difficult to choose testers. So once again, thank you all so much for all the love and support you've showed me already with this pattern. And if you'd like to check it out, of course, my Etsy is linked in the description box. And I just know these guys would love to see a bunch of other Splooting Triceratops out there in the world. But anyways, let's get into last weekend's market. And of course, I'll link all of the patterns in the description in case you'd like to make any of these cuties for your market. Okay, we're gonna start on a high note here by going through everything that sold last weekend, and you might notice it's not what some might call a lot, but we still had a fun day with some great sales, so let's get into it. Miraculously, we did have a bestseller last weekend. Actually, I would probably say we had two bestsellers. So the first one was the mini loaf cat. So I actually brought 5 of these guys with me in total. I brought 1 solid black, 1 solid gray, 2 speckled, one was like light speckled, one was a darker speckled color, and then I also brought a mini rainbow loaf cat. I made most of them using burlap blanket, but for the rainbow one, I did use big twist pattern pastel. And I did want to mention, because I've gotten so many questions about this, I did use the same pattern as these loaf cats back here. It's by Annie Caraway Art. I just made less rounds so that it would be smaller in size. And you guys, 4 out of 5 of these mini loaf cats sold last weekend. I was so happy that they did so well. I will say though, 4 out of 5 sold, so you know what that means. We of course have one wee little fellow who did not get chosen. And I have to say, seeing him by himself at the end of the day on his own little cheery round, there was some chatter amongst the other plushies to start another campaign. Okay, so it's not quite as catchy as Justice for Pink Dino, but we still feel pretty bad for this little guy. So hopefully he will find someone at the next market. But you guys, none of my regular sized loaf cats sold. Not a single one. If you've seen some of my last market recaps, then you know that these guys are consistently one of my best sellers. They either sell out or I only have a few left at the end of the day. So I feel like the amount of loaf cats that sold really indicates the amount of foot traffic that there was at this event. But anyway, we'll get into those details in a bit. I have mentioned before that I'll be doing a loaf cat drop on my Etsy soon, and I would have done it last week, but I actually had to take an unexpected trip out of town for a week to be with a family member. Everyone's okay, thankfully, but I did need to take some time to be with them last week. So hopefully very soon all of these adorable loaf cats will be up on my Etsy looking for their forever homes. And I'll be sure to announce that here as well as on my Instagram. But anyway, speaking of the Justice for Light Speckled Mini Loaf Cat campaign, y'all, Pink Dino has finally found justice. And if you're new here, where do I even start? The Pink Dino drama has been here since the beginning of time, it feels. So needless to say, there's a lot of Pink Dino drama to unpack, but basically, I brought Pink Dino with me to the past several markets, and he's consistently been the only one left. All of the other dinos would get adopted, and he would just be sitting there alone and sad at the end of the day by himself. And I mentioned in the last video, actually the pink and purple dinos were the only ones left at the end of that market, so at least they had each other. And I guess someone saw last week's video, and they ended up adopting both the Pink Dino and the purple dino on my Etsy, which I thought was just so adorable because that meant that they got to stay together. And since they were adopted a day before the market, I only ended up bringing the yellow, green, and blue dino. And actually, none of these guys ended up getting adopted at the market. But actually, the only one that I have left right now is the yellow dino, because the blue and the green dino actually just got adopted on my Etsy. I feel like lately I've been getting a lot more orders for existing plushies. I felt like before it was mostly patterns and custom orders, so that's super exciting that now some of the existing plushies are getting some love too. So anyways, you guys, we finally have Justice for Pink Dino. The dino drama saga is officially coming to a close, and as of right now, he is officially at his forever home along with Purple Dino. So anyways, back to what sold at last weekend's market. The next best seller was actually my fruit basket. For those of you who don't know, I always bring a bunch of $5 fruits with me to my market. I bring blueberries, oranges, and then I also bring watermelon keychains, kiwi keychains, and pineapple keychains. And these are all part of a 5-in-1 bundle pattern that's available on my Etsy if you'd like to check it out. But these guys did super well at last weekend's market. I ended up selling 2 of my blueberries. One of them had embroidered eyes and the other one had these safety eyes. And then I also sold 1 of my oranges, which also had embroidered eyes. I highly recommend having some items at your table with embroidered eyes so that the little ones can have some different things to choose from. Ever since I've started doing this, my items with embroidered eyes have done really well. And then I also sold 1 of my kiwi keychains and 1 of my pineapple keychains. So that means I sold 5 fruits total. So yeah, it was a party in the fruit basket this weekend. And I also sold 1 of the strawberry keychains that I make. This isn't my pattern. I'll link it for you guys below. But I thought it was really funny that I also sold 1 of these because the fruits were just having a really good day last weekend. Another item that sold pretty well this weekend was my bees. So I brought 5 of these guys with me in total, and I ended up selling 3. 2 of them had embroidered eyes and 1 of them had the plastic safety eyes. I guess you could say people were buzzing over them this weekend. Anyway, the next thing that we sold was 2 of our axolotls, and here they are. So 1 of the pink ones and 1 of the blue ones ended up going home, and actually the other blue one ended up going home on my Etsy. And then we also had 1 medium-sized chicken go home, and yeah, that was it. I only ended up selling 16 items in total. This was definitely one of the slowest markets that I've ever done, and I think that there were a lot of different things that kind of contributed to that. So first of all, I wanted to start off by saying that all of the proceeds for this event went to a really good cause. It went towards scholarship funds for high school students. So regardless, I'm really happy that I did this event and got the chance to participate in that. When you do a market like that benefits a good cause, it really gives you a good outlook on everything. Like, even if you don't make as many sales as you normally do or whatever, part of you is like, well, it really doesn't matter that much because the event was still a success, because at the end of the day, all of the booth fees went towards this good cause. But of course, in an ideal world, you would probably like to support a good cause while also being able to make a bunch of good sales. So I think there were a few different reasons why there wasn't that much foot traffic at this event. The first, of course, is that the event was on a hot August day and it was from 11 to 4. So by the time the event started, we were actually already reaching the hottest point in the day. And we were also set up in a parking lot, so the pavement was really reflecting up a lot of that heat back at us. And I know I might not want to go out to a market on a super hot day like that, but the event was supposed to happen back in May, but it actually ended up raining, so they rescheduled it to last weekend in August. So of course, no one intended for it to be at this point in the summer, but that's just kind of the way that it worked out. I've mentioned that I've really tried avoiding doing too many markets in July and August just because I do believe that heat negatively impacts foot traffic. However, I do believe that this event might have went better if it was scheduled for earlier in the day, maybe like from 9 to 2. That way people could have come out, explore the market before it reached the hottest point in the day. So if you're looking to do an event in the hotter months of the summer like July or August, I would recommend looking for events that start earlier in the day. Another thing I will say about this event is that they had 3 other crochet vendors there. So there were 4 of us total, and that's definitely the most that I've ever seen at any one event so far, and there were only like 25 to maybe 30 different vendors there, so it was a lot of crochet for the amount of vendors. But in general, I would say when inquiring about an event, it's a good idea to ask the coordinator if there are any other booths there that are selling similar things. Similar things. And this is actually the first event that I'd ever signed up for. This was actually supposed to be my very first market because it was supposed to happen back in May. So I had no idea that I probably should have asked that question, but I probably still would have done it because it was a fundraiser and we had fun anyways. The next point that I wanted to mention is, of course, there wasn't hardly any foot traffic at all. There were some spans of time that were like 30 minutes long where not a single person walked by. And you know, this could have been the heat, the time of day, it could have been the fact that it was rescheduled, or it could have been a combo of all of those things. This is an event that they'd done before, and there were like inflatable bouncy houses and food trucks, so on paper you would think that it would draw a ton of people, but unfortunately that's just kind of the reality of doing markets and being a vendor. There really is no way to ensure that a ton of people will turn out for an event. So I always try to have no expectations going into an event because sometimes they can be really awesome with a ton of foot traffic and other times not that many people show up. And I just think it's super important to look on the bright side, have fun, and just remember why you crochet in the first place. Okay, and there was one final point that I wanted to add to this whole thing. I mentioned that this event was from 11 to 4, and actually by 2:30, every single vendor was either already packing up or had already left. And this was partly due to the fact that foot traffic was so slow. Like, unfortunately, the person next to me didn't sell a single thing, and the person on the other side of me only sold one thing. So that's another important thing to remember. In the context of this event, I'm super happy with how my booth did, and I'm just really thankful that I was able to have the sales and the interactions with people that I did have. But anyways, aside from foot traffic, the other thing that made everybody pack up early was the wind. You guys, there were random gusts of wind that was just throwing everybody's stuff everywhere. Tents were flying, tables were toppling over, and it just had everybody really on edge, which was super unfortunate. Luckily, my tent didn't go anywhere, and you guys, I actually just got a brand new tent. I just got this tent off Amazon, and it was super easy to set up. They actually advertise it so that one person can set it up by themselves, and I had someone helping me, but of course, it's nice to know know that if I couldn't have someone with me, I would maybe be able to set it up myself. But I was super happy with this new tent, so if you guys want to check it out, I'll link it for you in the description. But anyway, we had big tent weights on our tent, so luckily our tent didn't go anywhere. There were a few times where some of my plushies were thrown off the table, so I had to rescue them. But I ended up rearranging my setup so that nothing was on the top tier, and we actually ended up zip tying a few things together. Like, we actually zip tied the keychain display to the wooden crate, and then all of the Jiki turtles had to lay down on their bellies because they kept toppling over. And normally I rest my sign on the side of my table, but with the wind it actually wouldn't stay up. So we ended up zip tying it to the tent, and I actually loved the way that it looked. I think it looked so cute, and the placement was perfect, and you could just see it so much better up there. So I think I'm actually going to do that for every market in the future. So anyway, my last piece of advice: have good tent weights, bring zip ties, and be flexible with your booth display, which brings me to my next topic. So I wanted to show you guys some footage from this market. This is what my booth display looked like, and I have to say, I think this was my favorite display so far. And I think a huge part of that was my splitting triceratops. I could not get over how adorable they looked on the table, and they really added a great pop of color. As you can see, the setup was a little different. I started this market with my octos on the top of my tiered displays because they're so low to the ground. I'd figured they'd have the best chance at not being thrown off from the wind, but eventually even they couldn't take it and were flying all over the place, so I ended up moving them down to one of my wooden table rounds. Then we had our mushy boys in the bottom of the tiered displays, and you guys, I made my very first possum. I only made one, so I had him sitting right here amongst the mushy boys. One thing that did shock me though about my display was that my rainbow loaf cats didn't fall off the top of the wooden crate. They're so round that I thought for sure they'd go tumbling off, but they didn't fall one time, so I was super impressed. But yeah, this was my first time really battling the wind, and I'm glad we were able to be flexible with the setup and not too many plushies flew off the table. So I know I normally do a section on things that didn't sell, but as you can see, there were a lot of things that didn't sell. Basically, everything that you just saw on my table that I didn't mention earlier did not sell. Sure, it never feels great when a market doesn't go as well as you had hoped, but on the bright side, I do still have a great amount of inventory for my next market, which is September 7th. And I'm super excited to have this little break because I've been doing so many markets lately. So I'm really excited to have this time to be able to work on some custom orders and some fun projects. I'm also planning a really hopefully funny video for you guys next week, so stay tuned for that. And I'm also incredibly excited for the fall markets that I have planned for this year. I'm super excited to make a bunch of like spooky themed plushies. I've already been seeing so many cute Halloween patterns, and I'm super excited to try them out. But anyway, time for the moment that you may or may not have been waiting for, the grand total for the day. So in total at this market, we brought in $188. And honestly, you guys, that was so much more than I expected given the turnout. I'm just super happy that we made as much as we did. We made back our booth fee, and of course, we were able to support a good cause. My smaller items like my fruit basket and my mini loaf cats were a super big hit this week, along with the items with embroidered eyes. So I'll definitely have to restock some embroidered eye items for my next market. And in my last market recap video, I mentioned that I actually switched out safety eyes for embroidered eyes on 2 of my oranges during the market. And I've gotten so many questions asking how I did that, so I thought I would show you guys. Alrighty, you guys, so we are going to do this on another orange since that's what I did it on before, and let me say I totally do not recommend doing this on an expensive plushie. I was comfortable doing this on one of these $5 fruits, so please only do this on items where you wouldn't feel too bad about messing them up. And disclaimer, this is going to feel super barbaric because we will be cutting the safety eyes out at first, but in the end we will have an adorable orange with embroidered eyes. So the first thing that I did at my market was insert my scissors kind of at an angle here. And in order to remove this eye, we really just need to cut out one piece of yarn just to give the backing of the eye enough room to slide out. you probably are going to have to cut quite a few times. And like I said, we're just cutting enough to give the backing enough room to slide out of the plushie. And then of course we do the same thing on the other eye. And then we take this side out as well. And then you can just remove any of the little extra fuzzies that kind of come out. So as you can see, yikes, this is pretty horrifying. What do you guys think? Halloween pattern? Should I drop it on my Etsy? And then we're gonna pick up our yarn needle and our yarn, of course. I like to use black acrylic yarn for the eyes. And make sure you have enough yarn because we're gonna be closing up both of these holes that we just created. And it's important to take note actually where the holes are. So you'll notice right here is one hole, and then right here is the other. So we're going to need to completely cover that up with our acrylic yarn. So I always enter from a different part of the plushie, and I bring my yarn to the bottom stitch below that hole. And we pull all the way through. As you can see, I gave myself a lot of yarn because I never want to run out. So then now we're going to take our yarn needle and we're going to insert it in the stitch above the hole. And then I like to just re-enter in that exact same stitch that I started in. And we pull through. And there we are. We have the beginning of our embroidered eye. So I like to go through a few more times. I'm gonna go through and put it on the left side, and I just like to guide it so that it's exactly where I want it. Oh my gosh, I need to make sure that I'm not going out of camera for you guys. And then of course I insert it again, and this time we're going to go to the right. Make sure we're guiding it to the right spot. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to do a few more times. So I'm going to do one more on the left side. And for this one, I'm actually gonna pull it the tightest so that it kind of has that look of like roundness to it. So we're gonna pull that one a little bit tighter. And then we're gonna do one more on this other side. Just like that. Now we're going to move over to our other eye. So we're gonna bring our yarn back through the hole that we were just in. And I'm going to come through below the other hole, just like we did on the first eye. And now we're going to repeat the whole process again. Alrighty, and as you can see, we just finished repeating the exact same process onto this eye. So once you're all done and you like the way that your eyes look, I just reinsert it back into that same stitch on the other side of the plushie. And then from here, we can just tie these two strands together with a knot and then hide them inside the plushie by pushing them back in. As you can see, I have quite a bit of acrylic yarn left here. I always feel like I overestimate how much I actually need, but I guess it's better than not having enough. So we just push all of that back into the plushie so that it's hidden. And then I always like to come back over here. So I know some people like to take a lighter and burn all of these little frills off of the plushie. I don't really like to do that just because I hate the way that it smells. But I always just like to take my scissors and I hold it to the side here and I just trim all of this extra stuff. And this is how he ended up looking. As you can see, still pretty cute. So that is how I ended up switching out the eyes at my market. I wouldn't say that I'm like a huge expert at doing embroidered eyes by any means. Like I literally just started doing them a few weeks ago. But for the purpose of what this is, which is probably for a young child, and you know, this only being a $5 item, I feel like this is a great option for someone looking for something cute for their little one. And like I said, I don't recommend doing this on more expensive things. Like I'd never have the guts to do this on any of my turtles or probably even any of my dinos, but things like fruits, octos, stuff like that, I definitely feel comfortable with. Because of course, if it doesn't turn out okay, you need to be okay with accepting that loss. And remember you guys, doing this is entirely up to you. Never feel pressured to do this. When this happened to me, the buyer had actually already paid me for the fruits and requested that I switch them out for her. So she paid me and then walked around the market a little bit while I changed them. So if you do end up doing this, you might want to consider receiving the payment first. But yeah, that is how I did it. I hope this was helpful for you guys and that it might be useful for you down the line. Alrighty, you guys, welcome to the very first segment of Where Are They Now? This week, we will be highlighting a very special past plushie, and the OG Crochet Friends will definitely remember this guy. We are talking about the one and only Evil Froggy. Evil Froggy was adopted about like a month and a half ago now, and he has since been living it up in his new evil lair. According to his new minions, I mean family, he loves spending his days plotting dastardly plans, working on his evil maniacal laugh, and ruling over all the other plushies. As you can see, he is really fitting in nicely as their new leader. And Evil Froggy was adopted by Rachel, who is actually a crochet artist as well. So I'll link her crochet store in the description below in case you guys would like to check it out. And Rachel, if you're watching, thank you again for giving Evil Froggy such an amazing evil lair. Alrighty, you guys, that wraps it up for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Next week's video is kind of gonna be a fun surprise. I've never done a video like it before, so I'm super excited for us to get into some crochet shenanigans together. And I know that I usually post my videos on Wednesday, and this one's coming out on Friday. Like I said, I had to take an unexpected trip, but thank you guys so much for your patience. But anyways, thank you guys so much for being here. As always, it means so much to me. And if you were watching this video and you were like, oh my gosh, I have a cool market tip of my own, be sure to leave it in the comments for all of us. And of course, if you were also crocheting during this video, be sure to let us all know what you were working on in the comments as well. But I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you in next week's video. Bye!